The new Lloydminster Nissan has moved into the Big Blue Building on Highway 16 West, formerly known as Border City RV. Shop in comfort with over 100 new and pre-owned vehicles all inside our giant showroom. This is the largest and the longest indoor sale in the history of the Border City. Sales and service all under one big roof. Come check out the massive savings in this massive building. The new Lloydminster Nissan, now in the Big Blue Building on Highway 16 West. The new Lloydminster Nissan. We won't sell you a car, we'll help you buy one.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster and area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Well, I'm Kurt Price of the new Lloydminster Nissan. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're here at the Lloydminster exhibition where tonight they have a Chase the Ace draw. And look at that, Gerald. 38 cards and $55,000.
$55,000. What a Christmas gift.
Oh, even if you didn't win the 55, it looks like it's going to be up over 2. Which would be pretty good Christmas
money. That
money.
should take care of 1 or 2 Visa bills.
Yeah, that's right, to get you through. At the new Lloydminster Nissan, we're working on getting you through right now with the 10 days of Christmas. Today only, and what is it, Wednesday, September the 19th? Is it the 19th today?
December, I think.
December something or other.
It's December something or other. It's getting close.
We are going to make your first 3 payments at the new Lloydminster Nissan. So see us today for the 10 days of Christmas, and keep checking our Facebook page at the new Lloydminster Nissan, because we got a different deal each day for the 10 days of Christmas. And you know we're relocated out on Highway 16 West. We're in the Big Blue Building with a great selection right now. In fact, we have so many cars that we are at the point now where we can't fit them all under the
I thought
roof.
you were having an indoor car sale and you moved outdoors. Like, what's going on? There's no big tent?
Well, we got most of them. Let's say most of them.
Okay.
I would say 99% of them are underneath the roof out at the Big Blue Building, which used to be Border City RV in Cams Industrial Park. So see us today, and you can get through the holidays without a payment, and get caught up on your bills before you make that first payment. Mayor Gerald Aalbers is our guest today, and we're going to talk about the arena. We're going to talk about the best of 2023, let's call it. Yep. And we're also going to look ahead to 2024. I got a big question for Gerald as well. But first, I want to tell you about BioClean Disaster Services. Their commitment is to you and your family. And I will add this as well. With BioClean Disaster Services, you can see another commitment there, and it's to community. They are definitely local. You see their name on the swimming pool, and BioClean Disaster Services is there to take care of your home and to take care of your possessions, but they know that what they really need to do is take some stress off you and get your family back to where you were before the disaster. Jody Herbis is the master of disaster. It says so on the back of his truck. So if you need help with fire, flood, or disaster, and again, that's Bonnyville, Wainwright, Cold Lake, and of course Lloydminster, you can call BioClean Disaster Services at 1-833-246-8326. I think I did that from memory this time.
Yeah, not bad, Kurt.
Getting pretty good at it. Okay, let's start with a look back on 2023. And I think, if you look back on 2023, the completion of the wastewater treatment plant,
That's pretty much my
It's not
highlight.
real sexy, but...
No, it's not at all, but it's needed. It was required. We did it right, and it's a great facility. It's going to be a showcase for other communities across Canada that want to take a look at a city our size, what kind of process we went through to construct it, and the team that put it together, as well as the technology that's there. It's state of the art. It's expandable, where we want to lead rather than follow. And as we all know, there was a little bit of a push from our federal government of the day to get that done, and our team delivered with subcontractors, contractors, and local people involved, and it was just a great project.
Well, I know it kept you up at night too. I know it did because I saw you and you looked a little stressed out, and I asked you about it, and you said, "Well, we're close.
We're close." And the team at the city, they got it so close. They knew the 1st of December was coming for a deadline, and I think I got approval on the 29th or 30th of November. So they cut it close, but no, it was good. The facility's running. I've had a chance to be out there and see the team, and it's incredible the product that's being produced. When you often we don't think about waste, and we don't think about our sewage and being treated, but they're doing a great job, and it's well done.
You know, when we look back at 2023, you've been at I don't know how many events. I mean, if you're not at an event, you're likely out of town doing something in Ottawa or somewhere, or Saskatoon, and we'll get to that in a moment here. But for me, I look back at the events of the year and what happened and things. Are there events and things that might have happened at those events that stand out to you about 2023? Because for me, I saw crowds come back.
Yeah, I think there was just so many activities and so many great activities and well-attended activities, right? And that just, it's interesting when I look back at my monthly report that goes to council and to the public, and it just, there's been a lot of things going on. This last 6 weeks have been a really big stretch for meetings and conferences to attend, but the summer was just packed with a lot of great stuff. And 2 sets of chuck wagon races. We had Premier Smith here visiting our community, the fair and Heritage Day, just those alone. And then we always have great activities in the spring, the fall, and then leading into the winter. And we've got a very active community, which is great to see, and people enjoy getting out and attending things. The craft show, as an example, 12,000 people here on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in November. It really stands out. So there's a lot of great activities. It doesn't have to be recreation. It can be culture. It can be business, such as the craft fair and every day.
Now, we look back at 2023. I look back to April of 2023 when it was announced that Synovus would become the sponsor of the naming rights.
Title sponsor.
Sponsor for the Synovus Hub. And then in the summer, we broke ground on the new Synovus Hub. Things are looking good. You got a couple grants, $93 million, but we fast forward to the fall, and it looks like that 93 is going up an extra $7 million. What happened there?
Well, basically, inflation, carbon tax, supply chain, just all come to a head. So one of the challenges when we do a project such as this, you do a cost estimate. We did some cost estimates, and there's various what they call classes of cost estimates. And when we got to the nitty-gritty of actually building it, that's when you move to a B-class cost estimate. And that's where we're seeing the rubber hit the road. Some of our first tenders came in. They were lower than estimates. Some were higher, and they kind of balanced out. Then we got into the bulk. So now we've tendered 90% of that building. And when those tenders came back, we did get a couple surprises. Steel is up quite a bit from that perspective, as an example. That's one that just definitely sticks out in my mind. But some of the others, and when the dust settled, we found $3 million worth of cost savings, and we have a $7 million increase on top. So it's actually $10 million. So almost a good 10% plus. And it's challenging, but at the same token, people have said, well, why don't you just stop and it'll go down in price? And I wish that was the case, but all indications that we're seeing from other municipalities, people who've done the research, say it's going to continue to go up. I don't know when it's going to stop, Kurt. That's the hard part. But we can't stop construction today and wait till next year and hope that we'd have to retender. And if those tenders come back higher money, you're going to have people even more asking, why didn't you just keep moving forward? So we are moving forward from that perspective. We still have 10% out there that need to be tendered, and we'll see where that comes in. We're hoping. But, this is the tough part, because once you get into a project, and I think you ask anybody in the construction business they're trying to lock in materials as far ahead as they can, because of the cost inflationary factors that we have. And inflation is still running 3.1% last month is what Stats Canada came out with for November. So it's a bit challenging. We're continuously working with the government of Alberta yet, because you talked about grants. We did receive a grant from the government of Saskatchewan and the government of Canada. And one thing I'll point out, one of the things that as a municipality, and we've heard this from our other fellow municipalities, We put in an application 2 years ago, then it finally gets approved. That cost difference alone in 2 years is incredible, but we don't get to ask for more money back from more money from the government. So it's a bit of a challenge, but we're working through it, and we will be. And the administration, as well as our contractors and our project manager, they know we have some challenges and they want to work with us. So we'll do the best we can do.
So, like, I guess, could you explain, like, back in when we broke ground in the summer,
Yep.
like, I looked at it as $93 million. Was I naive to think the city signs off on this, it's done, the contractors are all done, and it's sit back and wait for it to be built?
Yeah. So there's a huge difference between the wastewater treatment plant, which we had a pile of time to get prepared. We ended up getting an extension as well, but we had time to look at various options. And what the option we chose for the wastewater treatment plant was called the Integrated Project Delivery Model. And it's not perfect, but it certainly worked well for that project and delivered it on time, on budget. We chose a construction management contract in this case for the new Cenovus Energy Hub, and that is different from the wastewater treatment plant. This was in the back of our minds. We knew that this could be a possibility because you always hope that inflation was going to start to slide backwards or drop and things were going to settle down, but it was a challenge. And like I say, we saw some cost savings, but we also saw some cost increases. So there's a trade-off, and they didn't even up to 50-50. That's the sad part, right? The scale wasn't tipped evenly or for our benefit. It would have been nice to say, oh, guys, we come in under budget, we're going to build it for $90.5 million. That hasn't happened yet. But
Does the city pick up? This actually came up, I think, when I was out in Hamilton for the Grey Cup, and we're talking about a center, but then the Cenovus Hub will be the hub of the Midwest. So there'll be people in the RMs and areas around. How much help does the city get from the RMs and the surrounding community?
So we've reached out to both the RM of Britannia, the RM of Wilton, and we'll be having conversations with the County of Vermilion River. Alberta has a little different structure for municipalities working on projects like this than Saskatchewan, but we have reached out and chatted with both the RMs of Wilton and Britannia and asked for assistance. So we're waiting back to hear back from them, and as I can say, we're in discussions with Vermilion River today. There's a process called Intercollaboration Framework, and it's municipality and municipality in Alberta. It's been there for a few years, but with the recent updating of the Lloydminster Charter, we're able to enter into discussions with the County of Vermilion River. So we're working through those right now. So we're hoping that our neighbors will help support this, because this is not just beneficial for, as you said, it's a regional center. It serves a greater need.
Okay, you mentioned a carbon tax. Don't you get that money back, Gerald?
No, we don't, Kurt. That's one that really leaves a real burn for myself as a municipal leader, and I know with other municipal leaders. I understand when the carbon tax came in, the government of the day promised that municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals would get a rebate. To this date, the city of Lloydminster, and I don't know of a municipality in Canada that's received that rebate that was promised by the federal government. People get, if you're eligible, you'll get a rebate quarterly, I believe, from the federal government as individuals. But as taxpayers, you're getting dipped twice, because you're not getting any support from the federal government to help that tax burden and the cost on the city. And I can tell you, we use fuel, as you know, for cutting grass and doing all those things that the city does each and every day, but heating our buildings, the cost of natural gas, keeping the artificial ice rinks open in the summer, let alone the winter, and all these pieces are being, you're paying as a taxpayer. Taxpayers are paying the carbon tax again, and we're not seeing any relief, and it's really frustrating. It's a message I had a chance to convey to the Minister of Finance in Saskatchewan at one of our SUMA executive meetings, and she took it to Ottawa. We haven't heard back yet, but we often send things to Ottawa and wait a little while for a response. So the bottom line is, it hurts, and it's affecting, like I say, the Cenovus Energy Hub. It's present everywhere, and as goods change hands, everybody has an increased cost, so that cost continues to escalate. I'm not an economist, but I think it's had a lot to do with inflation.
I was kind of joking around, but I can see this is bothering you.
We take this very.
It's a burr in your saddle.
It is, because at the end of the day, the taxpayers of our city are paying carbon tax in essence twice, and through your taxes, because it costs more to deliver the services that you need each and every day, from snow clearing to snow plowing to snow removal, cutting grass, ensuring the water, to lift the water out of the North Saskatchewan River. It takes a lot of energy. That's electricity. We pay carbon tax on that electricity that lifts the water out of the North Saskatchewan River to get it to the water treatment plant. The new wastewater treatment plant, there's a lot of electric motors over there moving water. That's all got a carbon tax attached to it. Those are just things that are our daily life, let alone all the extras that come with it.
You get me revved up because you know what I think of the carbon tax. We're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about an issue that really surfaced in 2023, and that's the homeless in downtown Lloydminster.
At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
It's more than just taxes at LNA CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at LNA CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. LNA CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster.
Welcome back to Live with Kurt Price. We're at the Lloydminster exhibition today, and Mayor Gerald Aalbers is gracious enough to give us some of his time because it is a very, very busy time of year. Now, one of the things that has come up in 2023 is an increase in the homeless in downtown Lloydminster. Am I saying that right, Gerald? It seems like there's more people.
That's what it seems like that from that perspective. We're seeing people, and partly it's the weather condition, I think, Kurt, that you're seeing that, we've had a normal, warmer winter going into this. Not a lot of snow, if any, to speak of from that perspective. But yeah, it certainly has showed up a lot more, from that perspective. And there's many different factors that have been attributed to that from that perspective. We're trying to get we did a count, and we're just waiting on the report to come back to City Council from the city as to how many people are unhoused in our city.
How do you do that?
Well, they actually set out teams of people, and we had a contractor, some city staff, and they went out and they toured the city all night long. On October 18th, I believe it was the date they actually took a snapshot in time.
Now, the other thing that I have heard, maybe we'll clear up some rumors, okay?
Yep.
One of them is that some people came into this community because of the wildfires and didn't leave. Have you heard that?
I've heard that, and I know people from Northwest Territories went home. I cannot confirm if everybody from Saskatchewan and Alberta that were here went back to their various communities. That I can't confirm.
Another one that actually Heather told me about the other night, and I was shocked by it, is that some communities have put their homeless on a bus to get them to Lloydminster because there is shelter here.
I've heard that as well, and I can't confirm that either. I spoke to a group of homeless a couple weeks ago, or they spoke to me and shared some of their concerns and issues that they had. And no one, from that perspective, we had people from the outlying communities, and I'll say Lashburn and just around us, that had made their way to Lloydminster because they were homeless from that perspective. But the bus thing, that was quite a story that went around. I have not been able to confirm that, and hopefully that's one of the pieces of our study. They asked, where was your last residence, and if it wasn't Lloydminster, where it was it, and things like that. So that information is coming forward and it'll give us a better idea. But I'd heard that from multiple people, but I've yet to talk to someone that will say, yes, I got put on a bus from Edmonton or Calgary or wherever they may have been.
There's a wet shelter that has created, I would say, the most controversy downtown with downtown businesses. They're very concerned about it. There was a meeting held about it for the downtown. Nothing was really decided. Where's the status on the wet shelter? It's still there. It's still being used.
So I think the first, if I understand correctly from the information I've got, which is it's being operated by the men's shelter. Okay, so the city doesn't have any direct control over the shelter. It is a warming center. It's not a wet shelter, is what I understand. Now, I stand to be corrected as well, but I understand it's a warming center that's being operated for up to 6 months adjacent to the men's shelter, because men's shelter is full. That's part of the challenge. So where do someone go to warm up for the evening, or from that perspective? Now, last year there was a shelter ran, and it was in essence a warming shelter, but I believe the term was a wet shelter, and there was some serious challenges. So there was some planning issues, there was all sorts of issues with, and I heard quite a lot from neighbors and businesses, and I understand, and that's a challenge that we had. So the city tried to be proactive from the perspective of making sure that the connections were made, working with the police, peace officers, the fire department, and the men's shelter and other organizations, including the two governments, because they play the big role in this as the provincial governments for homeless and those on social assistance or social services or human services. That's provincial matter. The city that's not our bailiwick.
Do you have any role in that at all?
Well, we've become, I call it the quarterback or the coach, because we're trying to bring the team together and make sure that everybody knows what's going on.
But it's not a municipal.
It's not a municipal responsibility, but we're often asked because we're the first ones on the line of fire. And you can usually find me at the office or out on the street somewhere. We hear about it an awful lot. So we've tried to we've had administration working closely with various groups, trying to get everybody connected, going in the same direction, because at the end of the day we have lots of nonprofit organizations in our community trying to support, but are we all working in the same vein, or are we actually going in different directions and kind of contradicting each other? And I think that we're getting there. I don't mean to say that we've been doing it wrong, but let's work together and try and resolve some of the challenges, because this isn't just an unhoused issue. Some people are unhoused and have had the economy, as we talked about. We can go back to carbon tax and all the effects of the things have changed their life. Others have, because of that, developed an addiction issue, right? I can't imagine the challenge of losing your job, losing your family, and losing your business all in a very short time, bang, bang, bang. And what do? You in desperation, you turn to something hoping for a better day. Then there's cases where mental health have become a serious issue, and for some, it's been there for a long time. Just the way the systems have operated, we didn't see it in the past. Now all of a sudden it's front and center in our community. And you add to that, somebody's usually selling the illicit drugs, so you add the criminal factor. So there's multiple pieces to that. So that involves the police, involves Department of Health, mental health and addictions, human resources or social services, housing, and ensuring that. So there's a lot of great things going on, but at the same token, it doesn't resolve the issue. It's an issue that isn't going to go away. It's an issue that every municipality, urban municipality of any significant size, and because we're a regional center, we're facing it. I was in Brandon, Manitoba for a conference a couple weeks ago. They have a huge population. I didn't hear the number, but they said if they were as big as Winnipeg, they'd have 20,000 equivalents of people on the streets. So that's a lot of people in Brandon that are unhoused. There are challenges in Saskatoon, Regina, North Battleford, Edmonton. So it depends on the size of your community. It varies. We are working as diligently with the RCMP. We're working with our peace officers for public safety, because that is in our realm. That's the one piece we have some say in. From the perspective, we continuously having conversations with the provincial governments, talking to the nonprofit organizations as they're working with the provincial governments to ensure that we're addressing it as best as we can. There's no magic bullet and no silver lining in this, but from the perspective that we've got as human beings, we're trying to do what we can do to help support them as best as we can.
Well, it's a lot of people.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about something maybe a little more exciting, I suppose. You're in Saskatoon, talking to the city of Saskatoon, and some other communities, of course. You're kind of you speared it up. You're the head of the of what is it? Is it the Yellowhead?
No, it's the we've got a society name, but it's basically the group of mayors that have been working on a project to bring Via Rail to the Prairie North line.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, it started out about 6-7 years ago. I was approached by a gentleman in North Battleford, and the mayor of North Battleford at that time. We sat down and had a cup of coffee. And he says, have you gentlemen ever thought about seeing Via Rail come back to your communities? And we said, well, that's an interesting thought, and started to explore things and started to have some conversations. And it was on the side of our desks, and we discussed it and we started to talk about more people, and they said, hey, it sounds like a pretty good idea. And we engaged First Nations communities and the leadership, and they said, wow, that is a really interesting idea, because we've got things such as buffalo returning to Onion Lake, and now we have a herd of buffalo at the Onion Lake Cree Nation. Could you imagine being a tourist from Europe or Asia, arriving here on a passenger train, as an example, close to the First Nation, then ending up spending 2 or 3 days as an Indigenous experience, and waking up in a teepee. You open a teepee and you go, those are buffalo grazing around us, just eating the grass, and then you get that smell and you go, wow, that smells like fresh baking. It's bannock on an open fire. People from Europe and Asia are flocking to Canada for an Indigenous experience. 1 in 3 tourists to Canada today want an Indigenous experience. So we said, hey, there's an opportunity here to address economic reconciliation. There's an opportunity to grow tourism, and there's an opportunity to also enhance business for our community and potentially other communities along this route. So a lot of discussions. There was some money put in by the City of Lloydminster, the City of North Battleford, and I apologize, it's the Battleford Area Tribal Council Corporation that they have from a tourism perspective, and we completed the study. The study was done by an individual in North Battleford, and that had experience and knowledge, and put that together. We've been talking to the federal government. We sent it off to Via Rail, and got a very short answer from Via Rail. They were not extremely supportive.
Really?
That's a whole subject. But as we continue to get more people on side, we realized we needed Saskatoon support on this project. And so we took it to the Saskatoon City Council and asked for them to do for their support, which they haven't granted, but they haven't said no either. They want to do some more studies themselves and ask some more questions as it got some airplay. And it's been interesting. I've heard from people across Canada that said, hey, that's a great idea. To make Via Rail be able to be on time would be a huge accomplishment, because that's one of the major challenges. The Via Rail is on the CN main line, and it's competing with the economic corridor of Canada, running materials back and forth. We've got freight, we've got containers, and we've got commodities, all coming to or going out of the west, headed to Prince Rupert or headed to Eastern Canada. And meantime, here's the Via Rail train that comes twice a week that has to bob and weave around those CN main, the cars. Often parked. Via gets parked because they're just renting space from CN. And it's been a really interesting discussion. We hope that Via will sit down with us. We're actually hoping the Federal Minister of Transport will actually answer a couple letters that I've sent and other people have sent, asking to have a conversation.
This is a side note, because I want to go back to Via Rail, but when's the last time a federal minister was in Lloydminster?
I would think his name was the former Honorable Jerry Ritz, was the last federal minister in the city, and I couldn't tell you when, but he was, whenever he was still a minister in the government of Canada.
He left, I think, in 2015, right?
2015, 2016, somewhere in there, maybe even 2017. I don't remember exactly when he retired, but yeah, we've invited, but we haven't seen him.
It's interesting. Brent Wilson asked me that on Twitter one day. When's the last time a federal minister had? I know somebody who might know. Just going back to Via Rail. When I heard that you were in Saskatoon talking to Via Rail, the first thing that I thought was, who could possibly afford to use the Via Rail? How busy is the Via Rail? Because, like, for me personally, I've looked at the price of Via Rail. I couldn't afford to use Via Rail. I just couldn't.
Excuse me. So yeah, this is just the, there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. Via Rail is it's a crown corporation run by the federal government. They appoint the board of directors. That explains it. Has some things to say. I don't think it's going to be the cure-all, end-all, and it'll be people's first choice. But tourists are coming to this country, and if you come to Canada, you want the experience. So there's that factor. They do have a program, I believe, for Indigenous riders where they get 50% off, so that to encourage that usage. But you have to get to the train, and second of all, it has to be dependable enough you want to use it. A gentleman from North Battleford shared with me, he rode from Edmonton to Saskatoon because he just loves it. He's retired now, and that's his.
I used to ride as a kid because my dad was worked for CN.
So he was on the train from Edmonton to Saskatoon. And he had got the sleeping car, and he knew he'd have the sleeping car. He'd booked a berth in the sleeping car, and it was supposed to arrive at 7:15 in Saskatoon. He woke up at about 7 o'clock, and he looked out, and he says, "This isn't Saskatoon, or getting close." They were passed by 9 CN freight trains, I understand, and they arrived 4.5 hours late from Edmonton to Saskatoon. We know that distance. You and I have driven it before. It's not that. It's 6 hours, 7 hours, maybe at the most driving, and he was 4.5 hours late on the train. So they've got a performance delivery issue, and like anything, who would use something that way, as well as the cost drivers. So you can imagine if that train leaves Vancouver and gets to Toronto and it's 4 days late, they've paid their staff 4 days of overtime while they're on that train, their costs and things like that. So their food costs, because if you booked your trip, and I'm not exactly sure how that works for certain passengers, some buy and some would have meals included, it's astronomical. So there's a challenge that we're trying to help Via Rail address, which they haven't even wanted to talk about yet. Not guaranteeing that just by simply moving to the Prairie North line will get them on time in Toronto, but it will certainly help, because the stretch we understand that's really sees a lot of activity is between Melville and Saskatoon, but we just talked about Edmonton to Saskatoon as well. BHP, going to open the largest potash mine in the world, just outside of Saskatoon. Where do you think that potash is going to go, to how it's going to get to Prince Rupert? It's not going to be on the back of a donkey. It's going down the train. There's two choices. There's 2 major carriers in Canada for CN and CP. If they split it halfway, there's a pile of potash that's now going to be entering that CN main line, coming on to Saskatoon and competing again for traffic space on the main.
Have they come to the table now? Like, did they kind of, was it one of those situations where you approach and they went, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, right, we're going to move our line," and then you explain things and say, "This is what we've looked at," and they go, "Oh, okay, well, maybe we will."
Well, we're hoping that...
that's a no. That's a no.
Nothing from Via yet, and I'm still waiting patiently for the Minister of Transport federally to respond as well. So we're hoping the coverage has been extensive, which we appreciate from the media world. I did an interview yesterday with a young lady in Ottawa that is doing a whole article about Via Rail across Canada, because Via plays a big role in Eastern Canada especially, and that perspective. One of the opposition MPs from the New Democratic transportation critic is riding the rail right now from Ottawa home to Smithers, BC. I hope he makes it home for Christmas. I really do, but I'm not holding my breath. I think he was pretty optimistic that he was going to get there on time. So he left Ottawa, I believe, on Friday, late Thursday or Friday. I actually sent him an email and said, here's our proposal, here's our news release. If you'd like to chat, I haven't heard from his office yet, but I'm hoping I'll hear from him in the new year and chat a little bit more.
Let's talk about WestJet. Let's talk about more transportation and WestJet's decision to pull out of Lloydminster this April. Did you know about it before? How long has the city known that WestJet was going to be leaving?
The day we got the notice is when we found out from WestJet. That,
the same day that
same day, basically. Yeah.
That the media got the notice.
Yeah.
That I got the notice.
Yeah. So I've had a conversation with some WestJet executive. We'll be having some further conversations in the new year with WestJet. Certainly, we need to clarify some of the information they've provided us, and they're open to having a conversation. What does that mean? I won't guarantee anything, but I think that we will make a very clear and stated pitch to why WestJet needs to be part of our city from that perspective. But it's challenging. COVID has done a number on a lot of different things, and air travel is no different as we look around from that perspective. But we are not going to take this one, as they say, lying down. We will be back to WestJet and speaking to them in person in Calgary, discussing this in greater detail, and making a pretty good pitch to make it, as to why they should be part of the Lloydminster community.
So if you talk to people in the community, there's a lot of things that people will tell you that will maybe clear up now. Yep. Because I've talked to people at the airport who have told me the city has done everything that WestJet has asked them to do. So one of the things that has come up is they don't like our airport. The people are saying we don't have the proper lighting. We don't have this. WestJet's asked for this. The city hasn't given to them. You want to clear that up?
Yeah, no. If there has been any issues at all, because they went to the night flights, there was some questions about lighting. The city made the effort to get additional lighting, and for that, because it wasn't they were arriving during the day, so we had lighting. But now, because of the fueling process that they require, we've added some extra lighting. Yeah, anytime there's been an ask by WestJet from the city, we've accommodated, and there's no operational issues from the airport that WestJet indicated. It's a performance numbers, and that's what we understand. So we want to dive into that a little further and chat with them about that perspective.
You sound a little more optimistic that WestJet may reconsider.
Well, I truly believe we're going to make a very valid effort to ensure that all the facts are laid out and have a discussion. That's why, as WestJet said, they gave us 123 days notice. That's a requirement of the federal government, a minimum 120 days notice to terminate service. And we want to make sure that we've looked at all the avenues, turned over all the stones, and let them know how important this WestJet is to this community, and how important Lloydminster is to WestJet, and ensure that the public, because it's really people using WestJet that makes it pay, right? That's if people are flying and to using it for connections from that perspective. So we've got some work to do, and not going to let WestJet off the hook by any means.
How about other carriers? Do you reach out to other carriers automatically and say, "Hey, we've got to be prepared too"?
Well, we've got to balance that, and we've always been looking, hopefully, to add another carrier, because there's other routes available that we believe from rather than just Calgary, which WestJet served, which was terrific because that connects you to their hub, right? You can go anywhere from Calgary in the world with WestJet or other carriers, but through their alliances and connections. But is there other places that we could potentially connect by air? We believe there is. It's been one of those things as we came out of COVID, because we talked about it before COVID, and then COVID came, and of course a lot of things got curtailed. So it's conversations that have been had, but now we'll just have more fulsome conversations.
Pretty shocked?
Yeah, it's really, I expressed this to the WestJet executive we chatted with. I wish we'd have had you to come to us sooner and said, hey, we need to sit down and talk. But it's welcome to the world of corporate business. This is the way they do it, and they did it. They followed their rules. It's federal. The aviation industry is federally regulated, so it's again a little different. Rail, air, water, and banking. Those the feds control are responsible for those. So they followed the regulations that they did, and they followed it to the T.
I haven't seen any WestJet advertisements in Lloyd. I'll just say that.
I would agree with
put
you.
that out there.
Yep.
I'm an advertising guy, right? We do advertising on our show here.
Yep.
It's very reasonable, by the way. But I haven't seen anything for WestJet to remind people that they're flying back and forth to Calgary. And I assume it's Calgary because of the oil connection. Yep. So we're going to talk a little bit about that connection, that oil connection that links not only Lloydminster to Calgary, but to the rest of the country and to the world, and what a cap on emissions might do to that after we come back from this short break.
At Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to support the communities we live in. When you support Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, you are supporting local nonprofits and initiatives. Since 2020, we have donated $60,000 to local nonprofits, youth sponsorships, and various special projects. When was the last time your insurance company did that?
How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with a Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
Welcome back to Live with Kurt Price. We're at the Lloydminster exhibition today, and I want to let you know about our friends at Superior Water. Superior Water is proud to provide you with the purest drinking water possible. I drink it because I like the taste, and I believe it is superior. And I have already been there to fill up my big blue jugs for the Christmas season, and of course to get the ice for the Crown Royal, which is just $2 a bag. And I had a discussion with Bucky last night. He said, does the Crown Royal or does the ice come in a bag? They both do, actually.
I didn't know you could get Crown Royal in a bag.
Yes, the velvet bag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, they both do. 2 locations in Lloydminster. Visit them beside Sheepskin Loft on 57th Avenue. And if you need help, you will not have to ask for it. They're very, very helpful there. And of course, they have a coin-operated location just off Highway 17 South. Okay, let's get into. We're talking a lot about federal government today.
Yeah, we are.
They've put a cap on emissions, and that has stirred the pot for many of the people who I associate with. And what I have heard is it is going to interfere with investments in our country. And those investments are going to go other places. Boy, we hear that a lot. Yeah. But putting a cap on emissions seems to be the last straw for a lot of people. What's that going to do to Lloydminster?
That's a really good question. So this is a really challenging part because we just saw COP28 and all the different things that have went on, discussions and different agreements signed. Everyone has an opinion, and I'm going to try and keep my own personal opinion out of this as best as I can. But the bottom line is that growing up on the prairies, we know that the weather has changed each and every year, and that perspective, it could be 40 below outside, which it isn't, thank goodness, and I appreciate that. We could have 6 or 8 feet of snow and have to be plugging our way through that, and I'm glad right now we don't either. But in the same token, there are a lot of options available to do different things. People that have got EV cars, I've chatted with people that have had them, and they'll keep them. And others that say that's the last one I'll ever buy because it just doesn't work in the prairie provinces for the nature of your lifestyle. For myself, I can't be sitting every couple hours parked for an hour charging a vehicle. If I'm going to go to Regina, I need to get to Regina, and I want to get back from Regina after I'm done a meeting and things like that.
And apparently if you go to Calgary, you're going to have to drive.
Yeah, and you're going to have to drive.
Right now.
Indeed. So from that perspective, we know there's a lot of work that's been done in solar and wind, and that's some of it. But again, we've heard very clearly that won't cover our base load requirements. It's great to add to the grid, but one of the challenges I have is who what's being subsidized and what isn't, and that's the conversation I think a lot of people are having at the coffee table, and what they've heard and what they haven't. This small modular reactor is something that a nuclear reactor, or even better, a nuclear battery, as one was phrased that I saw in Saskatoon recently. I attended a meeting there. There's some interesting technology coming, but again, a small modular battery, or small nuclear battery, is not going to fit in the back of your pickup truck either. So we're going to still need internal combustion. We know that generates heat, and we're talking about it. Volkswagen came out with a model, I think in the 70s, that you had to put the Canadian option on, which was the extra fired heater, because the engine was air cooled and didn't produce any heat, so the car was cold in the winter. So they actually had to add a heating component to it. So that's a challenge. So we've got some huge challenges. Our federal government has some disconnect from that perspective. It's really hard because, as you said, no federal ministers here to tour around and talk about where are those electric cars going to drive on. Asphalt. They have to have asphalt. They don't respond well to dust. So eliminates all your farmers from buying an electric vehicle, because most roads in the county and the RMs are gravel, a number of them. From the perspective, if you're driving in Toronto, you're going to need asphalt to drive on, and that's what they want. So where does asphalt come from? It doesn't come from rubber trees, and it doesn't come from wheat or barley, I'm afraid. It comes from oil. And we're very fortunate to have the best asphalt in the world, because we've got the best heavy oil in the world to produce the asphalt. So to answer your question, it's going to have an impact if this continues, and that's something that the government of Canada is going to have to realize, and sooner or later it's going to hit, because the example I use is there was a map that was produced about equalization, and we're going to be sending a lot of money. Saskatchewan sending money to Ottawa, BC sending money. And where does that money come from? A lot of it comes from oil and gas, and if you don't have oil and gas, you're not going to have any money, and the map of equalization will change dramatically in this country. And I'd love to have that conversation with the federal government and say, can you explain this to me? I just need to be clear as to where that money is going to come from. And we're not talking chump change. We're talking billions and billions of dollars.
When it comes to communicating with the federal government, is it frustrating for you right now to have a Saskatchewan government and an Alberta government who I would say are not getting along with the federal government? They're not playing nice in the sandbox with each other. Has that become frustrating for the city, and has it become a barrier?
It is frustrating, because you hope you always get more done working together. It doesn't matter if you're in a small community and you're at the rink and everybody pulls together to get the ice in the wintertime, or get the kitchen cleaned up for the concession. When you're working together, you get a lot more done. There are challenges with having two provincial governments and the federal government not seeing eye to eye on almost every front, if not every front, basically. It is challenging. And, when it comes to grant applications, we've got to work through those. If there's federal money involved, there's a federal-provincial relationship, and we saw that with wastewater treatment plant, the new Synovus Energy Hub. Anytime we're seeking out those federal dollars, there's that piece to it. It is one of the challenges, and the federal government has gone to municipalities in some cases and said, hey, we want to work with you because we can't seem to work with our provincial partners. Our provincial partner says, hey, we want to be partnership, but we can't work with the federal government. So it does create some challenges on funding opportunities, ensuring that taxpayers' dollars get put to the best use possible. That's really what I'd like to see, and that's not always the agenda at those levels. So that's a challenge.
Inflation is also, and we talked about this off the top of the show, it's been hard on small businesses. Are you hearing from small businesses in the community about inflation? I know you guys did what you could with the budget. Budget's like, I'll be perfectly honest, I was hearing numbers from other communities about their tax increases, and then everybody's talking about, ours are going to go up because of the Synovus Hub. I was pretty happy that ours went up minimally, and I will say that from a homeowner perspective. My taxes went up minimally this year, especially compared to last year. Okay, but are you hearing from local businesses on the challenges that inflation has created?
There's, since I'll say this: since COVID, we've heard from businesses. We heard from before that, because if we take you back to 2017 budgets, that point when the council my first council and the council I got elected with started to deal with some challenges in the financial side of the city, but it is really showing up, because I think the cost drivers that small businesses are seeing on every corner, they're getting eroded, right? Because we talked about it, carbon tax, the inflationary cost, their cost of goods, their cost and supply chain challenges. You can't sell something you don't have on your shelf. Doesn't matter if you're selling bags of tea, or you're selling fish hooks, or you're selling automobiles. We saw that with the dealerships in town. The lots were pretty empty for a while. So it's played a real toll on everyone. And we're seeing some challenges from small businesses that have
How can the city help?
That's a really tough one, Kurt, because the problem is that our money, the money that the city operates on, is taxpayers' money. So if we had people come to us, and I'll use the downtown redevelopment, well, just give us a tax break. Well, it takes so much money to operate the city. So the city we don't have the ability that the federal government has, or the provincial government, to go into debt, which is, I'm really glad of that, because I don't think I would sleep at all at night knowing that we are just putting debt on the future generations. So we have to operate with a balanced budget. So if we give money over here that we don't have, we've got to take it from somewhere else. And it's back to, we just don't cut grass, and then or we'll only cut it once a month. Well, if you have a rainy season, that it's going to look pretty shaggy, and we get a lot of compliments about our community. And when people come to invest, they want to see a community worth investing in. We simply just don't have bags or piles of money to say, oh yeah, we'll throw some money at this because we'd like to do that, and we think that's the best thing. Helping everybody out, back to the homeless or unhoused, we just don't have the resources that the province and the federal governments have to deal with. And I feel for small business, I really do, and we work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce in one particular organization representing businesses. Is there things that the city can do to help a small business? But when you realize that the municipality, out of the tax dollar, if everybody was able to lay out their total tax bill, less than 10 cents out of the dollar paid in taxes comes to the municipality. Yet we provide 60% of the infrastructure and the supports that ensure that your business has got a place to, the sidewalks out front downtown and in businesses, the roads are cleared, there's a fire department to protect you for fire protection, police for public safety. From that perspective, you've got water and sewer and they are paid for through utilities, but it's all part of the city from that perspective. So it is a really challenging thing. And when I read and hear a story about a small business closing, it's really sad. It really is, because I grew up in a small town. Those small businesses were the people that at that time were the Board of Trade that supplied some money towards buying a Christmas orange and putting together a Christmas bag when Santa came to town, as an example. The annual fair parade, somebody went and took time that evening before, or 2 evenings before, and started to put together some sort of display to put in the parade. That's what makes our community a great place. From here, I'm going to opening and do a grand opening for a new small business. But I also saw it on Facebook that we're seeing some small business close, which, it's really, really sad, because how do you compete in this global world? And my heart goes out to them, because I've managed businesses, and it's tough, because people don't come in and shop and support you locally. You're in trouble. Yet we know that every local business will tell you, oh, I had the 4-H club stop by and they asked for a donation, and we had the ball team and the hockey team and the soccer team, and the dancers were here and they're doing a fundraiser. And you always like to support. I always did, as a manager of a business, say just some little bit, but those little bits all add up.
We used to have a shop local. Was that the city that put that together?
We still do,
Lloyd
and that
Loves
was
Local?
support. Lloyd Loves Local, support local. That was with the Chamber of Commerce and some other organizations, and that package is still there. You'll still see them on doors, the stickers, support local and buy local, and I really encourage people. And I hear again at different meetings and talking to people, if you don't go looking local, you'll miss it. You need to take that time and go and visit a store. Ask them if they have it. If you can't, just find it yourself. The people were more than glad to help you, because those aren't just the owners. Those are the employees in local stores that are looking. They want to keep their job, and they want to make sure that their bosses are successful, because that means they're going to get a paycheck as well. So people in the retail business locally really want to serve you. If you don't go and ask, if you don't see it, ask. You may even have to wait a day or two or the next shipment in, but they'll may be able to get it for you. And one person shared with me yesterday, they said it was cheaper buying it local than on Amazon. And I said, yahoo! So folks, Amazon does not support your local arena. It does not support your local dance club, 4-H club, hockey team. And that's what people need to remember, and it's a challenge. Now, I'm not saying that Amazon's bad, but let's give our local folks first chance.
Looking ahead to 2024, it's an election year. It is, first off, we'll have a by-election in February. A lot of interest in that?
I understand that a couple packages have been picked up, and I hope people take the opportunity to, if they've thought about running for council, here's a great opportunity from that perspective. If you haven't, maybe you're not interested in running as a candidate, but here's an opportunity to engage people and share your views with people that want to represent you at City Council. Then followed, come October of 2024, the residents of the Saskatchewan side of the city will vote for a provincial government. And follow that, we will have a general election from the municipality. So whoever gets elected in February has to, if they want to do it again, put their name forward again in November, or for November 13th for the election for municipal government.
Speaking of that Saskatchewan election that's coming up, have you made a decision, and are you willing to share that decision with us today?
Well, I'll tell you that on January 18th, I think about 10:30 in the morning, I'll be calling a news conference at City Hall specifically to address where myself and my family are looking forward to in 2024 and the future.
Thanks, Gerald.
You're welcome.
Got plans for Christmas?
We do. We're going to be gathering as a family for pre-Christmas, because the boys are headed in different directions with our one daughter-in-law and one girlfriend, different directions. They're headed to their respective homes, and we'll have a little quieter Christmas with some of Christine's family.
You actually get some time off?
Plan to. I'm going to turn my out of office on, so if you want to reach me, I will get back to you as quick as I can in the new year.
Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks very much, Kurt, and a very Merry Christmas to everybody, to you and Heather, and all those that enjoy your show. Thanks so much for the support in 2023, and we're excited about 2024.
We've got one more show before Christmas, and that comes your way tomorrow, and it will be our Ugly Sweater Patchwork Show. So we're going to be talking to Tracy Kay and Adam Waterman, and Brian Zinchuk will join us as well, and we will talk about that emissions cap that we talked about.
Perfect.
And some other issues that have come up in 2023 as well, and look ahead to 2024. That's tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, and we look forward to talking to you then.